Hi, my name is Mike, and I'm here to read a comic. And today's comic is Superboy, starring the Legion of Superheroes, issue number 198, dated October 1973. This is one of the earliest comic books I can remember buying, or making my mom buy. I think there are probably three other comic books I remember buying before this one. And I bought it simply largely because of the cover. And probably because I could see it on the newsstand. I know it was on one of the spinning racks. It's a Nick Cardy cover. It's a really good one. We see Superboy, he's on his knees as the Fatal Five is cheering on the Persuader's axe as it appears to be in the act of striking him. So Superboy's handling the axe, but the axe is acting at its own free will. And the Persuader is telling him, "You can't resist my atomic axe, Superboy. You've become your own executioner." And Superboy is saying, "I didn't axe you." And then on the left side, we see some of the co-stars that will be in this issue. Brainiac 5, Element Lad, Princess Projectra, Karate Kid, and Mont-El. I think sometimes I tend to pronounce his name Montel, but Mont-El. And we're told the Fatal Five who twisted time. And we're told that this is a new book-length blockbuster. One, it's a pretty good story. And two, this is actually, I think, the first full-length issue of Superboy and the Legion of Superheroes, because at this point, prior to this, the Legion was the B story in most of the Superboy comics. But the Dave Cockrum run, and I know I've done a lot of comics drawn by Dave, that proved so popular that the fans wanted it to be no longer relegated to the B story. They wanted to see Superboy with the Legion of Superheroes. And this was a successful run, and I really enjoyed it. This is probably my favorite DC comic. And anyway, we'll go into the story. Skip some of these ads. And we kind of have this split sequential splash page here. It's going to let us know what's going on. And we see Superboy. He's being blasted by the Emerald Eye. And the possessor of the Emerald Eye is the Emerald Empress. She's one of the 5 members of the Fatal Five. She's teamed up with the Persuader and his atomic axe. And then we see Valis and Thark. They're looking at the Legion's disappearing headquarters here. So there's kind of a lot going on this one page. And, Superboy in these ribs, man, he has these huge ribs. So he's really taking a shot from the Emerald Eye here. So basically it's saying, listen, Superboy's going to be in the 20th century, but the actions and the motives and everything about this story is happening in the 30th century, where the Legion is. And we're told the story is the Fatal Five who twisted time. And the creative team, we got 2 credits. The story is by Carrie Bates. This is a good story. Carrie, you did a good job here. And the art is by Dave Cockrum. Cockrum, you did a great job here. I love Dave Cockrum's artwork at this time, because it's really a more dynamic version of Kurt Schaffenberg. And so we go into the story. We see Clark and Lana Lang. They're on a date together. They're at the fair. Apparently, Clark has been kind of a downer lately, so Lana is taking him on a date, because we know Clark isn't entirely aggressive. even though he clearly likes Lana, who's drawn beautifully here. And Lana, to her credit, she is not ashamed to be seen with Clark. Doesn't care. You think this is the girl who would be dating the high school quarterback? No, she likes who she likes, and she likes Clark, and she has him by the arm here. So they're both walking hand in hand. Clark's not ashamed. Clark is like, hey, check this out. Check this little hottie out. So the two are they're going through this small carny. So there's a carnival here. I don't know if carnies are a thing. We do see a callback to one of DC's characters, Vashna. I think he was a character that was involved with Deadman. He was an Indian mystic, and he sort of guided Deadman in his adventures. I think that was really the only real tie that Deadman had to the actual physical world, was through Vashta's kind of mentoring him. We see another character who kind of looks a little like Peter Parker, and then the two of them, Clark and Lana, they're entering this exhibit called Horror Haven, and then we see two images of presumably statues here, and one is of Swamp Thing, and the other is Man Thing. So this is kind of like a quiet little call out. It doesn't look exactly like Man Thing because even though the comic book guys, they all knew each other, the Marvel guys knew the DC guys and vice versa at this time. Nevertheless, they had to be careful about doing stuff like this because the bosses aren't going to be too happy about this because there are copyright issues. Nevertheless, they were able to get this little homage to the Man Thing here. There was always a debate because Swamp Thing came out first, but Man Thing came out at the heels of Swamp Thing. And the thing is, people who know things about comic production is that they couldn't. There's no way one company could come out with a rip-off of another character that quickly. So the belief was that the two were kind of created around the same time, and that the guys who created Swamp Thing were kind of sharing things with the Marvel guys, and the Marvel guys were coming up with their own Swamp version, monster or thing, and they knew what DC was doing, so they knew how to shape it so it's different than DC's. So anyway, Clark and Lana, they're going through this kind of haunted house. Lana's having a lot of fun here. Clark is kind of pretending to be a little scared here. But the thing is, Clark is actually kind of nervous. And it's not actually the haunted house that they're in. It's actually, there was an event that happened in Smallville a few days earlier. And what had happened was that a mysterious UFO was sighted over the town. And people were initially confused by this UFO. But then this UFO started to shoot out beams of light. And it seemed like the UFO was scanning the entire city. Or actually, I shouldn't say city, the entire town. And it's actually going through the flesh of people. It's just like an X-ray here. And we see some of the citizens here. They're seeing their own skeletons here. It's a really well-drawn panel. One kid is enjoying the experience. The other, two adults here are horrified. Now, the thing is that it looks like the woman here is wearing pants. And the thing is that DC editorial stated that Superman was 29 years old, no matter what era he's in. And Superboy was like 15 years younger. And since Superman was taking place in 1973, Superboy should have been taking place in 1958. And women, for the most part, were not wearing pants. outside. They obviously had that as a fashion thing, but the norm was not to wear pants. So it's kind of like a little mistake there. So anyway, the thing is, after this event had happened, there was no follow up from this UFO about what happened. So this is something that had happened, freaked the people out, but nevertheless, there was no like follow up or action after that. But nevertheless, Superboy is thinking, hey, there's something going on here. Because the thing is that by the time he had gotten out to investigate as Superboy, the UFO was gone. So he doesn't know what had happened. But nevertheless, he has a bad feeling that something bad's going to happen in Smallville. Now Clark, he's kind of lost in his thoughts here. He's kind of enjoying the exhibit. He's kind of forgotten the hot chick he's with, which he shouldn't be doing. And he even admits it here. Because Lana starts screaming, a gorilla, help Clark. And Clark is thinking, what's that? So busy thinking I forgot all about Lana. Dude, seriously, kid. But then it turns out that there actually is a gorilla in the tent here. And Clark is caught by surprise by this. But the thing is that at this point, the gorilla had grabbed Lana. And she's in the gorilla's arms. Now, the gorilla isn't hurting her at this point. He's carrying her off. Nevertheless, obviously, this is definitely unwanted male attention. She's hitting the gorilla, saying, please let me down. Hey, I can communicate with the gorillas. It's completely understandable, and they can understand me. So she's requesting the gorilla put her down. Clark, he's finally up to speed about what's happening here. And it turns out that what had happened was that the gorilla was part of the zoo here. And he escaped its ropes. So two of the carnies are looking for the gorilla here. They have a rope and a huge batch of bananas to entice it. And Lana, she's fighting back against the gorilla. Clark is heading toward the gorilla. He's not worried about his changing into Superboy and his identity, but the thing is, he's concerned. How can he stop this gorilla without arousing Lana's suspicions? So this is something that he has to handle very carefully. And what he does is he plays the klutz. So on one hand, he's scoring points with her because he's saying, listen, don't panic, Lana. I'll save you. So he's showing that alpha energy there by confronting this large, powerful creature. But at the same time, he kind of plays the klutz role. He kind of trips. But the thing is, as he's tripping, he grabs the gorilla's neck and he sort of gives him the Spock treatment. So that pinched nerve takes the gorilla out. And what he's hoping for is that Lana's not going to notice that he had done that sly little move. Then it turns out the gorilla's handlers, they hear the ruckus in the haunted house exhibit. They rush in, and they're horrified that the gorilla is attacking two teenagers. And one of them saying, I hope we're not too late. And turn the page, take a look at this one ad. It's for AFX. These are the racing cars. An older cousin of mine had these. These are so much fun, but the thing is he hated whenever I touched his stuff. So I couldn't really play with it too much. And, nothing big about this ad. So anyway, the gorilla is unconscious. Obviously, Lana is out of the gorilla's grip. Lana doesn't understand why the gorilla passed out. Clark isn't giving any hints as to why this is happening. So he's kind of sort of lying to Lana here. And one of the big things about Superboy was that he never lied. He was always honest. But he's being a little less than honest here. So anyway, so Clark and Lana, they go back to their date. She's forgotten this incident, so there's no trauma whatsoever. And however, Clark is still kind of preoccupied with these strange ongoings going on in Smallville. First, there was that UFO, and then there was this incident in the Carney. But he's also thinking, hey, I'm with a hot chick. Maybe I should kind of enjoy being with her. And then Lana sees an exhibit she wants to go into, and it's a fortune-telling one. And we see Lana here. She's having her fortune being told. And it has the whole thing with the crystal ball and everything. Lana knows that Clark would look down on this. But nevertheless, she finds this fun and amusing. So she's going ahead. Clark is just kind of watching. He's watching very cynically here, saying, yeah, right, like this is real. And you see Lana here is beautifully drawn by Dave Cockrum here. So anyway, Clark, he takes a look in the crystal ball to see what exactly it is. Just sort of, he can kind of figure out what the trick is. But the thing is, his X-ray vision reveals that it's actually the emerald eye that is the crystal ball. And Clark knows that, the emerald eye belongs to the Emerald Princess. And he knows this is trouble because Superboy has battled against the Fatal Five a number of times. So he needs to slip away and to change into Superboy. He tries to do it in a way that will not draw suspicion to him. So he claims he has a stomach ache, saying like kind of the Frankfurters and the cotton candy didn't mix too well. Yeah, that's not going to mix well in your stomach. And Lana's a little concerned, saying, hey, listen, don't you want to hear about my fortune? I'm fine. You can puke. Just puke in the corner, but, listen to my fortune. But Clark says, no, he needs some fresh air. He needs to get out of that smelly tent. Anyway, so Lana is continuing with her fortune being told. And the fortune teller tells Lana, quote, and I foresee a major upheaval in your life is close at hand. And that's when Superboy appears. Superboy appears saying, listen, I found you guys out. You're not fooling me. I know exactly who you are. You're the Emerald Empress. And he wants to know what she's kind of doing there, because she's a 30th century chick. Why is she in the 20th century? And then the Emerald Princess reveals herself. And again, she's just beautifully drawn here by Dave Cockrum. And she knows that it was the eye that gave away her appearance there in Smallville here. And then she commands the eye to attack Superboy. The Emerald Empress, from what I understand, actually was a ruler of a planet. She was not well liked at all. She was like Queen Kim Kardashian. She got thrown off her homeworld. But she was able to take possession of this powerful eye. And she's been kind of a criminal ever since. And she strikes out against Superboy. Superboy knows that the Emerald Empress and the Eye, they're a formidable duel. He knows that the Eye has incredible power, and he has to kind of really be careful here. Then it turns out another member of the Fatal Five is working as a carny, because again, these are criminals. So if they're going to be in incognito, they're going to be carnies. And it turns out that the man who's wielding this sledgehammer is actually the Persuader. And the Persuader is kind of like this executioner type. He has this quote atomic axe here. I guess he's called the Persuader because, hey, you could persuade a lot of people if you start cutting off their body parts. So then he's about to join the fracas here. Superboy, he's having a hard time with the Emerald Eye here because he's trying to deliver a super kick. However, the eye is undamaged at this point, and it's kind of a stalemate here. And Superboy here, he kind of puts together that it was the eye who was most likely to be that UFO that had scanned Smallville a few days earlier. But then the Persuader comes in and he attempts to attack Superboy from behind. And while Superboy is kind of going through this thought process, he almost found himself chopped in half. And so he barely gets out of the way of his axe. Then Superboy, this is a really great panel here. He delivers this pimp slap. He pimp slaps the hell out of the Persuader. And the Persuader is flown in the air here. He's separated from his axe. If you axed, but he's separated from the axe here, and he doesn't understand what the Persuader is sort of gloating about, because the Persuader here mentions the Time Sorter, and the Time Sorter is the MacGuffin in this story. So Superboy's kind of confused about that. He grabs the Persuader's axe, and he doesn't feel that the Persuader is much of an opponent without it. So he grabbed that axe, and he's like saying, "Listen, we'll see how well you can fight without it." And the Emerald Empress, she joins in the gloating, and she starts talking about the Time Sorter, the MacGuffin here. But the thing is, Superboy's confused because, as far as he's concerned, these two are talking in riddles, and he's not getting the joke. But the thing is, as he's holding the atomic axe, it's starting to siphon power off of him. Now, at first, Superboy doesn't realize this because it's kind of early on. However, the axe is actually absorbing more and more of Superboy's power. And the thing is, the Persuader can control the atomic axe, whether it's in his hands or not. So right now, the axe is in Superboy's hands. It's draining his power, and at the same time, the Persuader is commanding the axe to strike Superboy. And at this point, the axe is winning, because the thing is, he can't let go of it because it has a mental hold on him. It's sucking his powers up because of that, he's getting weaker and weaker, and the axe is coming more and more forward. And then, in a really great page, that kind of the tipping point has been reached, and then the axe strikes Superboy. Now, Superboy is strong enough, he still has enough power to handle being hit at this point. But this is the point where the axe is just a little bit more powerful than he is. And nature kind of is evening things out. The Persuader here, he's looking at it, he's enjoying this. He's laughing at the fact that Superboy basically murked himself here. And then with Superboy sort of thrown off balance here, the Emerald Empress is able to take advantage of the situation since he's in this weakened state. And the Emerald Eye puts Superboy in kind of this stasis force field here. And again, they're using the negative effect. Now, I had never seen this before. So this was really, this type of inking technique was really kind of new to me. And then it turns out that Manos, who's also a member of the Fatal Five, he shows up. And it looks like the Persuader and the Emerald Empress, they were awaiting his arrival. And from the Persuader's tone, it looks like he was late. Um, but the Persuader's a little ticked about this, but the Emerald Empress really isn't, and she's just kind of giving some expository dialogue to Manos about what's happening, saying, "Listen, they had already installed the time sorter without you, Manos, but we did it, and we handled Superboy too." So I guess when the spoils are cut, these two are going to bring this up, and they say, hey, we should get a little bit more because we did more work. However, at this point, they're not worried about that. So the three of them, they're kind of putting their hands together. They're kind of gloating over the fact that, hey, they're going to achieve final victory against Superboy and the Legion of Superheroes. So at this point, Superboy himself, he's at his lowest point because he's kind of like in this death-like stasis. And everything's looking good for the Fatal Five here. Okay, gonna continue. Take a look at this one ad. I remember seeing this. The day Bill told his boss off. And we see Bill here. He's kind of like this, 30 something kind of schlup here, and then we see this kind of angry crank of a boss, and he's being really intimidating, saying, "Get in here, Bill. I want to talk to you." I imagine, from what I read, Stan Lee probably talked to his own younger brother, Larry Lieber, because Larry Lieber kept the family's name, and Stan changed it to Lee. And this is sort of the relationship that I think they had, because apparently, from what I've read and what Larry has said, Stan didn't treat him very well. So anyway, it turns out this angry crank, he's mad at Bill because he punched in 7 minutes late. And he's going to be docked a whole hour's pay. And then he better not let it happen again or else. I hate these small business tyrants. And it turns out that Bill has a surprise for Mr. Cranky, saying, "Listen, he's already got a new job lined up, and it's going to pay twice the money." Of course, why the hell was Bill already there if he had this set up? I guess he wanted that last paycheck. So Cranky Boss says, "Listen, anyone would be crazy to pay you that much," because apparently Bill has a new job that pays twice the money. Cranky Boss here, he's one of these guys who wants to get guys who will work as cheaply as possible, and these are guys barely competent. So when they hired Bill, they weren't really hiring Bill for his competency. He was hired because he was willing to take this lower salary and to work competently enough to kind of justify the boss's greed. But it doesn't matter. Bill flipped the script, and it turned out he had learned a profession, electronics, that's going to pay him more. Anyway, the boss can't believe it. "You in electronics?" And Bill says, "Yes, now. I've got a career. See, I made it easy. And goodbye to you and your crummy job." And it asks you, are you working for peanuts in a dead-end job? Get smart. Send for 2 free books like Bill did. Okay, so that's the ad. Okay, so we're at part 2 here. And following the 3-part or 3-act storyline, this is when the heroes are at their lowest point. Superboy has been defeated, and the time sorter, whatever it is already active. But it turns out that 4 members of the Legion have shown up in 20th century Smallville. And who it is, it's Brainiac 5, Element Lad, who looks really young in this issue, Princess Projectra, and Karate Kid. They're in the time bubble here. Karate Kid was drawn as Euro-Asian in this story. There was always some confusion with the artist whether he should be drawn um, Caucasian or Euro-Asian. And Dave Cochran picked Euro-Asian here. So anyway, the four heroes from the 30th century, they're in the 20th century in Smallville. And based on the dialogue here, they know that at least two members of the Fatal Five had gone into the past. And they're mentioning the Emerald Empress and the Persuader. Now this is again a little bit of Cary Bates here. He was very good at sort of like leaving these little clues for the reader, but usually they were so subtle that you kind of didn't really notice them until after you read the comic book. So the thing is, they're talking about these two members of the Fatal Five. Now remember when we left Superboy, there were three members of the Fatal Five there. And it turns out Karate Kid has some super hearing here, because there's talk about what's happening in the carny, because the people saw the fight. And they're like, no, Superboy can't be dead. Those three vanished and took his body with them. So at this point, those members of the Fatal Five and Superboy, they're no longer at the carny. Karate Kid hears this. He says, listen, it sounds really bad here. So we need to investigate. They go into the carnival. They encounter Lana Lang. Lana Lang is an honorary member of the Legion. So she's familiar with the Legion. So she's familiar with Karate Kid and Princess Projectra. So she's cueing them in as to what happened. Lana is mentioning that she did overhear them talking about a time sorter and how they had defeated Superboy. And the Karate Kid and Princess Projector, they're trying to comfort Lana here. Element Lad, he kind of took this opportunity to grab himself a cotton candy. Now, I'm sure the DC editors, if they were asked, they would say yes. They came with some 20th century currency, and they did pay for it. This kid didn't pay for it. He just took it. And we see Brainiac 5. Brainiac 5 looks like he's the one who's in charge. And so it looks like they had questioned a few other people about what's going on. And they found out that now there's a third member they have to worry about, and that's Manos. Manos is the one who has the hand, the deadly hand that can disintegrate upon touch. So the members of the Legion here, they're discussing things about what they should do next. Element Lad is enjoying his stolen candy. Lana has a power ring. She can become Insect Queen, but she refrains from doing that in this issue, though. Now, one thing Brainiac does point out is that the other two members of the Fatal Five are in lockup. So he's saying, listen, we don't have to worry about those two, because when we left the 30th century, those two were in lockup. I'm not quite sure how the time works, because they would have to be completely in sync. Like, at 12:35, no matter what year, the layers of time, they're in sync with each other. But nevertheless, that's a theoretical question we don't have to ask. So we go back to the 30th century, and there's a discussion going on in the Legion's headquarters. And they're talking about a previous battle that the Legion had with Valis and Thark. And apparently what had happened is that Valis was tricked into attacking Thark, which damaged Thark's robot half of his body. And they're kind of questioning how could Thark have escaped prison, given that when Valis attacked Thark, um, Thark's metallic half was kind of melted away. So that part of his body was damaged pretty greatly. So they don't understand how they could have escaped from prison. And then Colossus Boy here is kind of letting Montel know what's going on, because Montel is asking this question: how did they escape? And Colossus Boy is saying, "Listen, Thark had help," and he's saying that, well, Valis was never really captured. We said he was captured, but he really wasn't captured because we just let him go. But because he wasn't under Thark's mental command, we considered him neutralized and thus captured. So this is a very tortured explanation. And Colossus Boy is explaining this to Montel because Montel has not shown great judgment as a leader. So stuff like this has to be explained. Saying, listen, just because we came out with that little bit of word salad to justify what we did doesn't mean we actually did what we said. And Colossus Boy is telling Montel, unlike his master Valis, the mindless giant who was never captured. Boy, that's kind of awkward dialogue. And then Montel says, then we underrated the power of Thark's human half. He must have mentally summoned Valis to break him free of prison. So I think they were thinking that since the robot half probably played a role in the mental telepathic bond between Thark and Valis. But I guess Montel's believing, hey, after some time, the human part of the brain developed that power. Then Colossus Boy, he's debriefing Montel, saying, and just yesterday, the other members of the Fatal Five stole a time bridger to flee 1,000 years back to Smallville. Then Montel says, that's why I sent 4 Legionnaires into the past to help Superboy. And then the follow-up thing that Montel said was, why the fuck did you sit on this information and not share it with me? Because it seems like Colossus Boy knows more about what's going on than Montel. And Colossus Boy probably explained to Montel that, listen, I did do something useful with that information. I told Brainiac 5 it. And I'm thinking Brainiac 5 was the one who kind of persuaded Montel to send him and those 3 other Legionnaires back in time. Because apparently Colossus Boy has no respect for Montel's leadership, to the point where he probably went to Brainiac 5 thinking, listen, if I tell that Claude Montel, nothing's going to happen. I tell Brainiac 5, he knows how to talk to Mont and kind of get things done here. And Colossus Boy has a point, because in issue number 195, Montel's bad decision-making almost got him murked. So Mont is figuring out that his leadership isn't really respected too much. Okay, we're going to take a look at this ad for patches. And it's superhero-related patches, DC-related specifically. I would have loved these as a kid. And this is an ad for coins. I'm going to take a look at the amazing world of Superman. So this is a one-page scene. It's kind of like, behind the scenes at the DC comic world. And again, DC, I think, had done this for a while, where they tried to give the fans an idea of what's going on in the offices and what they should expect from DC. And one of them is really cool, this ad, was apparently they were working on a Superman theme park that was, I think it actually was going to be in Illinois, because the idea is Metropolis is an analog to Chicago. So apparently the Superman park was going to be in somewhere in Illinois, and they were going to call it within the park, Metropolis, Illinois. And there was going to be a Superman museum. Mind you, this is 1973, so you figure Superman was less than 40 years old at this time. But nevertheless, there was going to be a Superman museum, and there was going to be a Superman exhibit center. And there'll be a mural for Superman, and I think they're going to have various exhibits on how to create comics. So basically, it's sort of like the assembly line on how DC would publish their comics. There's going to be like a printing press, a printing plant at this place. I don't know what kid would want to see that, unless it was like maybe Kiss, where they allegedly used some of their own blood as the inks for that issue. So when you bought the comic, you allegedly were in some ways having Kiss's DNA on the pages. I think it turned out that there was a mix-up, and that batch of red ink ended up in an issue of Sports Illustrated. But nevertheless, they're talking about some of the exhibits. There's going to be Superman Olympics, and there's going to be the Superman movie. So they were working on an idea of like having a Superman movie as early as like 72, 73. I think it would been like more like the Captain EO movie at Disney, where it's only shown there. Admission was going to be $1.75 for an adult, $1.25 for kids, but the thing is, if you brought a comic book with you, you would save 25 cents on admission. So yeah, that would have been cool. And then they're talking about some things going on in the Amazing World of Superman. Yeah, kind of a few things. They're also talking about another magazine that they're publishing. It's not really well written. They're also talking about the Manhunter. Apparently the Manhunter is returning to Detective Comics as a B story there, but it's going to be a rebooted version. And this is the Walt Simonson one. I would recommend looking at some of those issues because the art is really good. And it turns out that Joe Orlando is working on a Spectra series that is going to appear in Adventure Comics, and that the Black Orchid, who was starring in Adventure Comics, she's going to be phased out. Those issues of the Spectra that Joe Orlando kind of oversaw, those were some of the most violent comic books ever created. I remember reading them at 7 years old and being disturbed by the imagery I saw in them. And yeah, they're talking about a comic convention coming up. So yeah, those are the things. I had no idea those things were happening in 73. I could barely read this issue. So then it turns out that as Montel is just being is about to curse out Colossus Boy, the two start fading away, and they don't know what's happening. Some of the other members are fading away here. I think I see Chemical King here, Shrinking Violet, and a few others. They're kind of just fading away. They don't know what's going on here. And the headquarters is fading away. And as they're fading away, one of the members says, "Don't give up hope. There has to be an explanation somewhere." So right now, the Legion's headquarters, where it stood, doesn't stand anymore. And who's standing there? Thark and Valis. And we see that Thark, his robot half, it does look severely damaged. So that bolt from Valis really did a job on it. But nevertheless, he's still operational. He's still as evil as ever here. And again, he's talking about this device that they're using, the MacGuffin, the time sorter. But we, as readers, we don't fully know what the time sorter is. So then we go back to 20th century Smallville. Brainiac 5, he's getting the troops together. He's talking to Element Lad here. Element Lad looks really young. He looks like he's 13 years old in this panel here. And Brainiac 5 is noting that they're only getting static back from the 30th century. So something went wrong in the 30th century, though obviously they don't know what it is. And they're kind of nervous about going back into the future because they don't know what's going to be there. And Element Lad's saying, "Listen, dude, don't worry. They're pretty powerful guys, and they can probably handle the situation themselves. I'm sure Montel would be really hyped. He has Bouncing Boy there. He has Matter Eater Lad there. He's going to feel really powerful, and he can probably take care of any situation there." As they're talking near their time bubble. We see the Persuader's axe. And the axe is thrown by the Persuader at the time bubble. So the time bubble is completely smashed at this point. The two Legionnaires, they barely dive out of the way of this. They both know it's the Persuader. And we see his axe is returning to the Persuader's hands. They're again, the Fatal Five, they're gloating here. Because they have this knowledge that something happened that they don't know yet. And Brainiac 5, he's noticing all this trash talking here. He doesn't know what's going on. Then we see Karate Kid and Princess Projectra. They're together. They're walking along the Carney, searching for some type of clues. It's also kind of a little romantic situation here because the two are holding hands. It's been established that these two are a couple. As they're kind of quote searching, not very well. They're kind of searching the love in their eyes. We see the Emerald Eye is coming from behind them, and it immediately attacks them. And the two are able to get out of the way, even without warning here. They both know it's the Emerald Eye at this point. Apparently the Emerald Eye can also act as kind of a zoom. So the Emerald Empress is zooming Karate Kid and Princess Projectra through the eye. So we see this kind of imagery coming from the eye as the Emerald Empress is saying, "Listen, we're not that far away, and we can take care of you, and you're not going to have any help." And the Emerald Empress, she lets the readers know with this expository dialogue what's going on, saying that they had found a device called the Time Sorter. So it seems like this is a device that Thark did not create himself, which would make sense because then fans would be asking, why don't they use the Time Sorter again later on? So it looks like it's a device that they had came across. They figured out how to operate it, and the Empress is letting them know that a couple of days ago the Eye had scanned the city. I'm not sure why she's telling this other than to inform the reader, because it's not like these two would care about that. But she does mention that they know it's hidden. She's saying it's, hey, listen, guy, it's hidden really well, and we found the best place for it. Even Chat GPT can't find a better place than where we've hid it. So anyway, with the other Legionnaires, the Persuader is going after Brainiac 5 here. Brainiac 5 is just barely able to keep himself out of the Persuader's range because he's swinging that axe around. And again, he's informing the same way that the Emerald Empress informed Karate Kid and Princess Projectra. The Persuader and Manos are explaining the evil plan to Brainiac 5 and Element Lad. And the Persuader is saying, listen, once our thing takes effect, you're stuck here. You're stuck here. There's no 30th century for you to go back. We destroyed your time bubble, and no one from the 30th century is going to come back to save you. And Brainiac 5 might not be able to recreate the time bubble in the 20th century because he might not have all the materials he needs. And who knows, maybe it needs a beacon to their time period, which no longer exists because the Legion no longer exists in that reality. We see Manos. He's going against Element Lad. Manos is using his disintegrating hand. So whenever his palm touches something, it can disintegrate it. So Element Lad has to kind of deal with this guy with some care. Then we go back to the carnival. We see Princess Projectra is kind of questioning the Emerald Empress, saying, what's the time sorter? Again, this is really more information for the reader. But she's saying, but yeah, the Legion can kind of use this information too, saying that it's a fantastic device that can upset the balance of the entire space-time continuum. In other words, it can change history. So basically, it kind of looks like the time sorter sort of will reset this particular timeline. And they wanted to make sure that the sorter would be operating in a place where Superboy would not be able to become a member of the Legion of Superheroes. So what they did was that they could operate the time sorter at any time, but they figured, okay, let's do it at the time in history where Superboy encounters the Legion of Superheroes, and the Legion of Superheroes is set course on their current reality, and the Fatal Five, they want to prevent that meeting from happening. So what's happening is that rather than Superboy eventually going into the 30th century to encounter the Legion there, they put Superboy in this unconscious stasis field where, you know, he's just going to be stuck there for eternity. And that meeting with Superboy and the Legion will never happen. So that's kind of basically the plan here. We see Karate Kid. He's sneaking up on the Emerald Eye. He uses his super karate, which is kind of like his power here. And yeah, it's kind of weird that his power is basically, you know, he's a super powered Daniel-san. And he hits the Emerald Eye. The Emerald Eye shatters. However, the Emerald Eye can recreate itself. Because again, this eye is extremely powerful. So the eye itself kind of just reformats. So the power here is more mystic than scientific. And again, the Zoom call is not interrupted at all, not once. Even when the eye is in pieces, you know, that network connection is holding. And the Emerald Empress is speaking through the eye, saying, listen, you know, resistance is futile, basically. So then we go back to the other members. Brainiac 5 is flying away from the Persuader. All the members of the Legionnaires have flight rings. So this is sort of like a nice little easy out for the rider here. And again, the Persuader and Manos, they're kind of cueing in these members about what's going on. And I don't care about this ad. Take a look at this in-house ad. It's just for DC's subscription service. They kind of separated into various categories. The superhero category, which is their biggest. Then they had mystery comics. DC had a long, successful run of mystery comics. Then they had some romance comics. That was the one thing DC did better than Marvel. Their mystery comics, their romance comics. They also they had their war comics. Marvel really only had the one war comic, I think Sergeant Fury. And then later on, when they tried to build some more kind of like military-based comics. 'Cause again, comic books were sold in on military bases and PXs, and I'm sure they kind of published those comics, wanting the military to buy as many as possible. And then they had various adventure comics. Commandy was placed under adventure. And then there's a couple science fiction ones. Here's one. It's kind of a weird amalgamation of sports and I guess you could say mystery. And this first issue here, the kid who beat the Oakland A's. The Oakland A's were they had a dynasty at this point. There's another one with the little racer and Jack the Giants Killer. He's a great basketball player. Okay. So we go back to the story. At this point, we see Manos is facing off against Element Lad. And he's trying to figure out a strategy on how to handle Manos. And one of the things that he does is that he's able to change one element to another element. He takes advantage of this by taking an old tree stump and he transmutes it into raw radioactive energy. And the resulting explosion kind of throws Manos for a loop here. So I forgot how, I don't think they discussed how Brainiac 5 got away from the Persuader. Let me take a look. Yeah, no, they kind of cut corners there. Because at one point, the Persuader was pursuing Brainiac 5, and then we see Brainiac 5 is no longer being pursued by the Persuader. So I guess they kind of ran out of a little time here. So nevertheless, Brainiac 5 and Element Lad, they shook those two members of the Fatal Five. Brainiac 5 wants to regroup with Karate Kid and Princess Projectra so they can all get on the same page. And it turns out that Karate Kid and Princess Projectra, they're already flying into the area. So all four members are in flight. They meet each other. It turns out that both teams know what's going on because they were filled in by their opponents. The members of the Legion, they're dejected though, because they feel like they have nowhere to go and that they failed. And Princess Projectra's saying, I can't believe we'll never see Mont, Bouncing Boy, Shrinking Violet, Choke, or any of our other pals ever again. That was so interesting that she mentioned Mont and Bouncing Boy. She must view those two as inseparable. Mont being so insecure that he has to hang around the weakest member just so he kind of looks a little stronger. Yeah, the other two members, Brainiac 5 and Element Lad, they're dejected too. At least Karate Kid can kind of comfort Princess Projectra. And they feel like they might be stuck there forever. So we are at part 3. Part 2, the end of part 2 is usually the heroes at their lowest moment. So the heroes, everyone's at their lowest moment. The Legion is at their lowest moment. Superboy's at their lowest moment. This is where they start overcoming their problems. Now the thing is, we're in the 30th century. In 2973, we see Thark and Valis. They're standing on the lot where the Legion headquarters used to be. And they encounter Manos. And Manos is explaining why he's there, because they're surprised that he's there. And he's saying, listen, I encountered some space posses in another galaxy far, far away. They were giving me problems. Hey, Han Solo, sometimes he got boarded. And, that's what happened to me. So that's why I'm late. Thark doesn't seem to be bothered by this, because apparently Manos was supposed to be with Persuader and the Emerald Empress, and we saw that. But Thark isn't concerned about that. Saying, oh, well, the other two seem to be handling things, because we're seeing the effects of what they did. So he's telling Manos it's no big deal. So the reader is being asked about the two Manos, because there's Manos in the 30th century, Manos in the 20th century. But we're told that one of them has to be an imposter, but which one? So the thing is, the reader has to kind of figure out which is the fake Manos. It turns out that back in the 20th century, we have Manos who seems to be arguing rather strongly about the location of the time sorter. Persuader and Emerald Empress, they're watching this guy. They're saying, listen, dude, seriously, we took care of it. We didn't need your input here. And just give it a little bit more time, and everything's going to work out well for us. But Manos is making the argument that we can't be too sure. And this argument's actually persuasive, because the Persuader is saying, listen, he's checking his watch here. He says, look, we have 20 minutes until this is permanent. So maybe we should just stand guard over where we have the time sorter for about 20 minutes. It's not going to hurt us, So we'll do that. Okay, Manos, you happy? And so the countdown is like 20 minutes away. And Manos is making the argument that we should stand guard over it. It works with these two, Persuader and Emerald Empress, saying that, yeah, why take chances? We'll just go to that location. And then the two are walking through an alleyway in Smallville. So it looks like Smallville does have dark, dangerous alleys. So these three are heading towards the town square. Emerald Empress is chilling the Persuader to keep his voice down. They still don't want people to know that they're there. And when they reach the town square, it turns out there's this large statue of Superboy there. And it turns out that's where the time sorter is. They're saying, listen, Legionnaires, they do show up. They're not going to smash this statue of their, quote, deceased comrade. Now, this is the thing that was kind of always strange for me in the Superboy and Legion of Superheroes, is that Superman does not appear in the 30th century. So that implies that Superman has a life expectancy, and it doesn't go, beyond the 30th century, because Superman doesn't exist in that universe. And when Superboy shows up in the 30th century to hang out with his friends, he's ghosting. He is ghosting that present, because, again, he's dead in it, except for when he comes, from the past. So, it seems like they're as confused as I am. But the thing is, as they're talking, and they say there's about 11 minutes left for this countdown, Manos kind of secretly touches a concealed switch on his belt. So at this point, it looks like Manos, the 20th century Manos, is the imposter. Brainiac 5, who looks at his utility belt, which he kind of took off for a moment. I'm kind of thinking Brainiac 5 maybe had to take a piss. He needs to take that belt off. And he sees that some signal that he was awaiting has been activated. Karate Kid and Princess Projectra, they're discussing their fate. They're saying, listen, if we're going to be stuck here in this 20th century hellhole, at least we'll be together. Element Lads, he doesn't like this downer talk. This is downer talk to him. And he's saying, listen, we still have hope here. As long as there's life, there's hope, and we're living here. And then Brainiac 5 interrupts, saying, hey, Element Lad, he's right, and that my secret weapon has paid off. And he actually says our secret weapon, but the thing is, he didn't tell the other three about this secret weapon. So they're kind of surprised. Then we find out there's 6 minutes to go before the time sorter's effects are permanent. Manos here is kind of leaning against a trash can here. But the thing is that since he has his right hand, which has that kind of that deadly disintegrating effect, it's not disintegrating the trash can. And Emerald Empress is noticing this, and she's like, she wants to know what's up. And the Persuader saying, listen, we know how your power works, and, because I got to make sure that I'm more powerful than you. And your power didn't work, and that's like impossible for that to happen. And it turned out that Manos is thinking to himself that the battery charged disintegrator that Brainiac 5 gave him doesn't work anymore. So Manos, this imposter of Manos, hasn't revealed himself, but his thought bubbles indicate that he is a Legionnaire. And then the Persuader, he uses his power of persuasion and gets the imposter to fess up to who he is. Turns out it's Chameleon Boy. Chameleon Boy, his image was shown in kind of the lineup. I don't think I mentioned it. But nevertheless, the reader was introduced to Chameleon Boy. So that was probably another hint that he was going to be used. The Fatal Five, the two members of the Fatal Five, they're not happy about the fact that that Chameleon Boy did a really good acting job. The Persuader is going to attack Chameleon Boy. However, the Emerald Empress notices something, and she immediately takes the Persuader's concentration off Chameleon Boy, and it appears that there is a large image of Valis about to attack them. Now, these two members, as powerful and as mean as they are leery of Valis, because it's been established that Valis is the most powerful single entity in the 30th century. And they also know that Valis is often mindless, and he might be prone to attacking them. And that's what the Emerald Empress is thinking. However, Chameleon Boy, he remembered something the Emerald Empress didn't, and that Princess Projectra was there with the teams in the 20th century. So Chameleon Boy, he took a gamble that this image of Valis was something produced by Princess Projectra, and he flies through the image. The other two members of the Fatal Five, Pursuer and Emerald Empress, they were taken for fools. They're pretty angry about this. They strike out, and they realize that there's only a minute left, because we're told here in between panels, commencing final 60-second countdown. So we get a countdown with this comic. So anyway, so things are still in flux here, and the Legion, they're still in the game. Take a look at this in-house ad for some of DC's comic books. One is for Iron Wolf, that's appearing in Weird Worlds. I don't think DC ever found their real Conan counterpart to what Marvel was doing. I think Warlord was kind of the closest to a Conan comic that DC was able to create. But yeah, Iron Wolf was one of the also-rans. Although he looks well drawn. I think Walt Simonson did this. In the middle, we see Shazam. DC had gotten the rights of Shazam. What had happened was Shazam was originally published by Fawcett Comics. And Shazam was an obvious ripoff of Superman. And the thing is, Shazam was actually outselling Superman at one point. So you had the original and you had the knockoff. And people were saying, you know what, I prefer the knockoff. This would be like more kids buying Crack magazine than Mad magazine. So anyway, DC Comics took Fawcett to court, and it was found that, yes, they had infringed, there was copyright infringement of the Superman character. So Fawcett Comics was forced to cease publishing Captain Marvel. But then what happened was, I think the rights actually at one point fell into public domain. And that's how Marvel was able to take the Captain Marvel name, because Fawcett didn't renew the copyright after it expired. And then I think DC had made a deal with the creator of Shazam, who is still alive at the time, to publish Shazam. So DC, after litigating Shazam out of existence, they ended up using litigation to get Shazam back, and they owned the copyright to Shazam. But they couldn't call it Captain Marvel as a title, because Marvel had the trademark to Captain Marvel. But they could call him Captain Marvel in the comic. This is a real shit cover, though. I have to say, this is a crappy cover. They tried to kind of like put in real life images here. People thought this was going to be a huge seller based on the history, and it ended up Shazam was a big bomb for DC. And then we see another comic. It's a horror title, Black Magic. I suspect it had mostly reprints in it. And yeah, those are. You're probably, if you saw these DC comics on the newsstand, you were probably buying something from Marvel. Okay, I'm going to take a look at this one ad. It's called How Joe Solved His, quote, Security Problem, or is Key to a Successful Future. Again, it's a correspondence course, but it's a correspondence course for locksmithing. Now, the thing is, what makes this notable is that the first panel is showing a man reading the newspaper, and all this crime is occurring. Police report crime rate increases. Local plant closes down. Unemployment highest in 6 months. Automation reduces jobs, economist states. Burglar caught at local home. Oh man, these could be ripped from the headlines of today. So what they're doing is that they're sort of using a scare tactic here in this ad, because they're mentioning the fact that because crime is increasing, there's going to be a greater need for locksmiths to lock up people's stuff. So that's sort of how they're selling this. And the guy Joe at the end, through the correspondence course, he opens his locksmith store. Kind of like what's that character from The Simpsons who opened the Leftorium? Flanders, yeah. So anyway, we go back to the story. See, the countdown is going on. We're down to T minus 30 seconds here. Because Chameleon Boy was able to activate his signal, the other members of the Legionnaires, they know where the time sorter is, and they still have time to destroy it before the effects become permanent. And Chameleon Boy, he tells Karate Kid to open up the monument there. He uses his super karate powers. He splits the statue in half. And it turns out that both Superboy and the time sorter were inside the statue. Superboy, he's unconscious, but nevertheless, the time sorter is still activated. So they're guessing that's the machine. They ask Karate Kid to, hey, destroy it, because the countdown is down to 10. And it turns out that at T minus 3, that's when Karate Kid is able to destroy the time sorter. And the effects of the time sorter, the permanent effects have not taken shape yet. So any permanent effects that the time sorter was going to cause are not going to happen, which means that the reality will revert back to what naturally happened in history. And with the machine destroyed, Chameleon Boy's fairly certain that they restored the space-time continuum back to what it was. He's kind of guessing here, really, because there's no evidence that that actually happened, other than him being told that if you stop it, it won't happen. Kind of jumping to conclusions there. Back in the 30th century, the walls of the Legionnaires' headquarters are reappearing, because again, the space-time continuum was set back to its rightful place. So that means the Legionnaires and the Legion headquarters, that stuff is all coming back. Thark speculates that something had happened in the past that caused this to happen. Now, as this is going on, Valis decides to fly off at this point. I guess Thark's control isn't 100% complete. Valis is thinking to himself how little he thinks that this isn't a good look for him. It's going to look really bad being stuck here. And he just flies off. He says, these guys are losers. Even a mindless giant like me can recognize and smell a loser. And it's what these two guys think. Now, Thark and Manos are in trouble here because neither of them can fly. So they're kind of stuck landbound here. Now we go back to the 20th century. The time sorter has been handled. Superboy's conscious. And Brainiac 5 and Element Lad, they're going to go after the Persuader and the Emerald Empress. And they're the ones who are gloating now because the Fatal Five's plan didn't come to fruition. We see a nice effect here. The Emerald Eye is transporting the Empress and the Persuader to another time period. And apparently this is a randomized event. So when the two members of the Fatal Five, they don't even know what era they're going to be in. But nevertheless, they're confident that there's nothing that can hold them back, no matter what era. So these two are escaping at this point. The two Legionnaires, they're a little bit disappointed because this is the cherry. This is the cherry on their mission, and they kind of just missed it. But you can't blame the Legionnaires. So anyway, the other members of the Legionnaires, they're kind of like cueing Superboy in as to what happened. And they're explaining that it was Brainiac 5 who decided that maybe they needed this, they needed an imposter there to infiltrate the Fatal Five. And he turned out to be right. Then we see Element Lad looking really young, looking like a 12-year-old here. And they're talking about the events that are going on in the 30th century. So they're kind of wondering whether their friends were able to handle the other members of the Fatal Five, the three who were in the 20th century. It turned out that one of them did escape, Valis did escape. However, it turned out that Thark and Manos, they were captured. And what was humiliating was that the place where they were standing when the headquarters reemerged was actually the Legionnaires' holding cells. So when the Legion headquarters came back, they were stuck in the holding cells. So the Legion didn't really have to do anything to capture these two. We see Montel and Colossus Boy. They're kind of laughing at this situation, kind of rubbing it in there. The two members of the Fatal Five here. I'm sure Colossus Boy is saying, "Yeah, this is indicative of Montel's leadership, where it was just strictly luck that got them out of this situation here." So, yeah, and everything ends on a positive note. And we're told that the next issue is going to come out the last week of August. So, yeah, we're still in 1973. And that's it. Oh, no, I think this is the letters page I have to read. Okay, so I'm going to read the letters page. It's Super Talk. That's it for the story. It was a good story. It was well drawn, too. It appears that the fans are really happy about the Legion returning. They kind of weren't happy with the limbo it was thrown in, because it was mostly a B story that was either in Adventure Comics, which at one time they owned that comic, but they were relegated to B stories. And there were also B stories in Action Comics, too. So if you were a fan of the Legion during that kind of hiatus era, you really had to find where the Legion was appearing. The X-Men also went through a similar hiatus situation, but at least they had their own title where the reprints were available. Okay, so first letter is very happy that the Legion has returned, but this person also wants the Legion, some members of the Legion, to guest star in other comic books. And that's kind of awkward because they're in different centuries. But editorial is telling him that, hey, we just started getting the Legion back to full-time status here. So we kind of have a lot on our hands here. Dave isn't the fastest artist in the world, so you might be asking for too much at this point. The next letter is talking about issue number 195 that I reviewed. He likes Carrie Bates's stories. Says he's better than Jim Shooter. And he says Dave Cockrum's artwork is terrific. And he says you must bring back Erg 1. Erg 1 eventually became Wildfire. And editorial saying, listen, don't worry, Erg 1's coming back. And editorial saying that they expect him back in issue number 200, which didn't happen. It happened in 201 or 202. 201 happened in 201. Because again, Dave Cockrum was not the fastest artist in the world. Then they mentioned a few other readers here. One of the things that the Legion letter page did, they tried to make as many mentions as possible to people who wrote in. And sometimes if you look at their letter pages, they'll just have small little excerpts from letters that they got. And this, believe it or not, was a cynical way for DC to try to sell more comic books, because they noticed that there were a group of readers that did enjoy seeing their name in print, and they enjoyed seeing their letters being printed. And I think some fans caught on to the fact that if you sent a letter to the Legion editorial team, they were more likely to publish it than other titles. And we'll take a look at some of the others. Oh, they're pointing out the Legion headquarters is addressed at 344 Clinton Street. That's where Superman's apartment was when he was an adult. So right now the Legion is occupying the land where Superman's old apartment used to be. It's not even his childhood place, it's just his place when he was an adult. A few other readers have noticed that too. Another reader wants the Legion to have their own 100-page giant-size issue. They had 2 of them, but he would have to wait, I think, another year for that. This writer is talking about how well the Bates and Cockrum team were. Yeah, they did some good stories on this title. Another one says that One Shot Hero, the Wildfire story, was really good. And he's saying, listen, hey, why aren't these guys in their own series? And then the last letter here is noting that the Legion is popular again now. And he's really praising the creative team. So yeah, so the letters were really positive at this time for the team. Take a look at some of the ads. Yeah, not really anything interesting. And that's it. And that is my review of Superboy, starring the Legion of Superheroes, issue number 198. And I hope to have more reviews up soon. Bye.